I'm going to share my screen with you. I want to say a good morning to everyone that's joining us. Welcome to our Antelope Valley Stakeholders Convening. Just a few housekeeping rules. Please sign in the link that's provided in the chat box. Just so you know, the information and resources that you see today will be sent to you via email. Okay, our agenda is here. You can review that briefly. We are going to be have a review of our Region 5 network growth, as well as update on state of the child and our demographic survey. We'll review our data maps and our community change agenda prioritization and just some closing remarks today. I'm going to turn this over to my director, Sylvia Scott, and she will go forward and tell you a little bit more about what's going to happen this morning. Sylvia.
Thank you, Terrell, and welcome everybody. So glad everybody could be here with us today. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Oh, which one? Which slide did you need, Sylvia? I'm sorry.
That's right. No, actually, go back to that one. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure in our regular regional meetings, some of you have attended those, some have not, and we totally invite you to come and join us. But for those last 6 months, we've really been looking at a lot of data. And one of the things is that, as you're all aware, First 5 LA is our funder, and they're really looking at taking the best start in all regions down a track where they really put an emphasis on data and on policy. And so we've been working really hard on that to try to make sure that all our community members are also aware of some of the data that's happening. And as we talk about the prioritization, what we were doing is we've looked at several data maps to show really some of the issues that are happening here in the Antelope Valley. What are some of the things that are affecting us? But we really wanted to talk about, what the main reason we're doing this is that as we finish going through these data maps, we are going to bring the community together, and then the community then is going to prioritize what are the 2 areas of that we want to focus on as a best start community. And as you can see, we did housing, we did employment, we did children and youth, we did education, justice, the environment in our physical space, and we just also finished out health and mental health. So within the next month or so, we are going to be putting together what we're going to call a data journey, just kind of do a brief overview of where we've been, what we've done, and then have the opportunity for the community itself to pick the 2 areas of focus, and what those 2 areas will be. Those will be our guidance in terms of what we call the community change agenda. And so once we prioritize what we want to do, then that's also going to lead us to start building committees. And out of the committees, really what's going to come out of there are the community projects that we want to focus on that align to the 2 focus areas. So I just wanted to give a little background on what we're doing and how it ties into some of the data we wanted to share with some of you here today. And like Darrell said, that everybody that has signed in, we want to make sure that we do have your email, because you will be getting a copy of all the data maps that we've used, just so that you are also aware of what we've really took a deep dive into. And then you'll be ready to help us vote on what our priority is going to be. And I will pass it on today to Bridget, who is our data manager.
Awesome. Awesome. So Bridget,
Yeah,
I'm going to turn this over to you right now. And give me 1 second.
sure, no problem.
Mhm. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. I am happy to have you all with us today as I'm going to be reviewing with you our growth over this fiscal year. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so here on this chart, I would like to show you the Best Start Network has had substantial growth. The 2021 and 22 fiscal year, we had 353 unduplicated participants. Currently, we have 559 unduplicated participants, which is a 63% increase thus far. Move on to the next one. Thank you. I would also like to show you a breakdown of all the activities that community members and stakeholders have been attending throughout this fiscal year. So we have our special engagement, our community, our trauma-informed masterclass. Stakeholders emphasized the need for another trauma-informed masterclass cohort, which led to our third cohort. Our diversity workshop, which has brought a large amount of participation from community members with the philosophy and commitment to advocating diversity, equity, inclusion in the Best Start Network. Our Policy Leadership Academy, convenings, and regional meetings. We are pleased to know that with the variety of activities Best Start has available, our network continues to grow. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as you see here, this is where we have our partner organizations grouped according to category, such as behavioral health services, child development and well-being, housing, emergency shelter, and youth programs. As you can see at the very top, we have 103 active organizations in our network. The purpose of this is to visualize and understand where our resources, relationships, and information is flowing in the Antelope Valley. We are proud to share the diversity of our network as it continues to expand. As part of the network, our goal is to provide positive impact and outcomes for our families and children in the Antelope Valley. The work that we do as part of the network is highly important to continue the progress that we've made to track our growth. The network, along with Children's Bureau and the community, are pivotal to obtain our goals in advocating for policies, such as policies that impact public education and health, and strategies that will impact direct services to our community members. We will continue to build, assess, and identify which communities with and across the region are missing in our network to support community change work. Does anyone have any questions before we move forward? Okay, so an update, let me just check the comments. Okay, no. Okay, so for the State of the Child Report update, the State of the Child Report provided by Catalyst California compiled a generous amount of data findings on the state of children and the public systems in Region 5. There were over 100 residents and advocates who participating in discussions and interviews and made recommendations on issues to consider that began in September of 2022 through April of this year. The report will identify indicators to focus on, monitor, and track changes to help improve regional child outcomes. The results have shown family-friendly, low cost of living within Antelope Valley is disappearing, and a new, more proactive infrastructure for children and families is needed. Best Start will coordinate activities to support this new infrastructure including hosting regular forums for family-focused organizations and updating and implementing a community change agenda. The results of their data compiled will inform this effort and for consideration of local funders, policymakers, and advocates. Stay tuned as a report will be presented during our regional meeting by Catalyst California. Now, for our demographic survey, it has been collected from members of our regional partnership this month with support from 3 community members. These 3 community members will also be supporting the team analyze the data as we prepare to present an infographic of the results during our next regional meeting. The demographic survey information will help Children's Bureau and First 5LA learn about the community members, stakeholders, and parents participating in our monthly regional partnership meetings. This information will also support our outreach efforts in the AV and the evaluation efforts in our regional partnership. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before we move on?
We can go to the next slide, Darrell. So just wanted to talk a little bit more about the data mats that we will be sharing for review with you today. We are going to have the education data mat. We are going to have one for children, youth, and families. We're also having one for housing. And our 4th one will be economy and employment. You will have the choice to see which one you would like to go into when we go into breakout rooms. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our evaluation approaches. What we did is we realized that we needed to have a specific guide for this work. And we selected 2 evaluation and research approaches to guide our data and learning to move the work forward. These 2 approaches that we chose were empowerment evaluation and community-based participatory action research. Both of these approaches have a really high degree of community participation, which is really what we were looking for. They also both have a really high, they encourage a really high ownership from the community. So as you, the community with the wisdom, with the experience, comes in and helps us do these data gathering, your experiences and your voice also then lead this work in terms of how we're going to prioritize. These 2 approaches call for intentional data and capacity building around data and evaluation. For this reason, we have engaged in this data interpretation and analysis of the core areas during our regional meetings in order to support our community change agenda prioritization. Today, we will be spending most of our time reviewing these 4 data mats. But before we do this, I want to make sure that we frame and we ground our conversation. The really important parts as we're looking at this data, there's several things. One is some of this data has been gathered from the census, but it's data that's a few years older. We don't have the newest census data yet. But what I want you to look at is not just the fact that some of this data is older, but starting to put yourself in a position like, if this data looked like this in 2019, imagine what the data could look like today after a pandemic, how the numbers could actually be a lot higher, knowing the kind of effects the pandemic had on our community in all of these different areas of data. We want to focus on the systems. We want to focus on the conditions that keep these systems this way. As we have talked about before with Best Start, we want to impact. We want to disrupt systems so that the same things that are oppressing us, the same things that are causing the inequalities, we want to change some of those things. So if we look more on what those conditions are, as opposed to blaming communities or blaming people, we also want to interpret, we want to discuss We want to uplift your lived experiences to add to this conversation and to the meaning to the data. One of the things too is it's really important as we facilitate this these breakout rooms. It's a little bit tougher because we're doing it virtually than if we were doing it in person. But again, you will have access to this data and really start looking at, as you're seeing this data, look at the different statistics that you're seeing. And the two questions that I encourage you and I invite you to ask yourself through the process is, what is standing out to you? What is impacting you? And two, start thinking, because we know that systems are they intercept each other. They, you know, it isn't just one system. We know that many systems interact with each other. So as you're doing this, think about what other systems have a role in this issue. And so what we'll do, like I said, we will do the breakout rooms. Stephanie has already set up the breakout rooms. You will get to choose which one you want to go into. And we have facilitators in the room who will guide you through the process. What we really want it to be, it's that it's not a breakout rooms that we are running. We want these breakout rooms to be your breakout rooms, your thoughts, you guiding the conversation, and seeing where that takes us. So like I said, we have these 4 data mats that we'll be doing. Stephanie will set up the rooms, and then after we will have about 45 minutes to 50 minutes in the breakout rooms. When we come back from the breakout rooms, we'll come back as a whole, and then we'll have about 15 minutes to really just talk about what are some of the things that stood out to you, or just a report out on your specific breakout room. Does anybody have any questions regarding any of that? So if you've attended any of our meetings, and you have done some of these data mats, maybe there's one that you particularly were not present for. You might want to join that specific one. If they're all new to you, know there's a lot of information in all of them, but if whatever room you choose, you will also get the data mats for all the other ones as well. So Stephanie, if you want to go ahead and
yes, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms right now, and again, just select what breakout room you want to participate in. Also, if you're a Spanish speaker, if you could just stay in the main room, and then we'll place you in a room. Thank you.
Si hablan español, no priman a qué cuarto quieran ir todavía, van a explicarles algo aquí mismo en el cuarto este.
Okay, and now they're all open. And if you need help picking a room, please let me know and I could place you. You will just click on below where all the tabs are and just select breakout room in whichever room you want. And Fawn, did you need any help selecting a breakout room?
All right. All right. Update. Okay. All right, we are back. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Back over here. And all right, here we go. So I know you all had a time and talking in your groups. I know we did in our group. We were still going at it. And then we got the boot. But what are some reflections, closing reflections or takeaways? And I'd like to hear from each of the groups. What was some of your takeaways? Let's go with Sylvia's group. Who was in Sylvia's group? I don't know. Sylvia, what was your group?
Oh, only the best group ever.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, controversy.
We have, we had a really good conversation, and I might ask Yadira and Donna if they could help us share out just some of the conversation that we talked about.
Hi, Sylvia. I can say that I feel hopeful. Like I feel like we are making progress. The progress is slow. We're going to need to practice our patience. I think we're at a point where we know what we have to do to improve the lives of youth and children. I think we've done all that reflection. I think we've done all that work. I think we've disseminated the data. I think we're in a good place now to start taking the action with all of this available data to support what we've kind of anecdotally known for a while. I think having the data let us show us and help support the work we have to do, I believe is very helpful, and it makes me very hopeful.
Which data group were you in, Donna?
Youth.
What were you all? Youth.
Youth.
Okay. Okay. All right. Awesome. And then I'm going to ask Liliana and Omar to kind of share, because we were right in the middle of a hot discussion and just talking about education and what we've noticed here in the Antelope Valley and what this data is sharing with us. So I'm going to ask Liliana to come up and Omar to just kind of give some highlights of what we were discussing in our group.
I'll go. So we were talking about, how the reading levels are very low. We're trying to figure out what is what is causing this. Is it demographics? Is it, the income levels? How much parent involvement is in supporting your children with all these, with education. So I think that was one of them. Also, guidance, for those students that are graduating high school, what do they know? Do they have access to resources to complete, to start college? So it's kind of just like, yeah, is there mentors that, help these students? So I think it's the lack of all that. We're trying to figure out what could it be, what exactly is it? But I think it's a mixture of a lot of things that,
Omar, any comments, reflections, anything taken away a takeaway you got from that data?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes full circle, with socioeconomics playing a big role in the dynamic of the family and, their future. It really affects those numbers, teaching kids to read at home, teaching them math, it definitely helps a lot to get ahead of, their classes and so forth. If the parents are able to spend that quality time and teach the kids. But if parents are working all the time and, have barely any time to spend quality time with their children, it starts associating them from, do I want to keep going to school? Do I have to go to school today? My parents aren't home. So that has to do a lot with it. And it just affects the whole timeline for these children. So that was a big takeaway. Another thing that we only briefly talked on was the cost of the childcare centers. I mean, with how expensive it is and how very little we have, for example, in Palmdale that are licensed, that has a huge role to do with it. I mean, at least when they are in these childcare facilities, they do get some sort of education out of it, or how to behave with others and so forth. So not being able to have the resources to send them there or stay at home and spend quality time with them plays a big role down the line.
One other thing I wanted to briefly share was that we kind of looked at the data, and when we got to retention and suspension and attendance, Liliana works at Options for Youth, and we were just wondering what would be the differential between the public schools and those charter schools, because they don't have a lot of absenteeisms and suspensions in the charter schools versus what we see in the public schools. So it's like, oh, that'd be interesting to find out what's the differential, what when we look at certain data, how reflective would that be with between charter schools like Options for Youth or Learn for Life or iLead. So that's just something for the future. Just curious because of the numbers and what we saw, what we're reading here in the data. Okay, any other takeaways, reflections from economy, housing?
I just wanted to add, as to what Omar was sharing, I know we've had some members that are in the educational system, and they shared with us that a lot of the children who are in elementary are having to miss school because they are taking care of their younger siblings, those who should be in the daycare, in daycare, but instead they're having to take care of their younger siblings and miss out on school. And this is the only option for a lot of families because, there's either only one parent in the household, or there might be two, and both of them might be working. So this gives them the only choice as to have the older sibling take care of the younger one. Just wanted to add that. I wanted to see if Kelly or Carmina or Daniel wanted to share anything in regards to economy and employment.
I just wanted to add to, but Omar brought up a good point. I don't mean to go off subject, but I do recall when I worked for Metro that the majority of the women that worked there were pretty much raising their kids via FaceTime. And like you said, a lot of the older siblings were pretty much left to watch over the younger siblings. As far as the data and the research that we were looking at, this was based off of was it 2017, I believe? Is that what it was?
2017 to 21.
Right, and so it was. A lot of this information was fairly new because I didn't know those were the actual numbers, and it's also based on the people who took the census, so we don't know an accurate assessment as to what the numbers would really look like from now until then. What was it? I had another thought. I just had a brain for it. I apologize.
Okay.
Well, if it comes back to me, I'll say something.
Yeah. Kelly, did you have something to add?
No, I just, we were just talking about so many different things. I just think the information to me wasn't correct as to what's going on now. There have been so many changes. I think there are a lot of jobs that were left off that were not being reflected. I understand the information that's there is to provide resources for people in need, but it looks a little off when we have so many statistics of the housing that we have here, the type of housing that we have here, who are living in these houses. If everyone is, of a certain economic level that can afford to live in those houses, then who's living here? So I had a lot of questions about that for the information. And then some of the jobs that were being reflected when the COVID hit, a lot of things did change. Some of the workers who were working in the restaurants, they now have shifted to doing Uber Eats and some of the online services. So none of that was being reflected to where it just made it seem like you have these hundreds of thousands of people that don't have a job. Some of them have switched to other types of employment, and some of them have went back to school to get another level of trade, education in a different trade. And now 3 years later, some of them still cannot find a job because the jobs just aren't there. So we were talking about putting, programs back in the high schools like they used to be, 30 years ago, where the kid could come out of high school with an actual trade or some skills that they could automatically get a job. A lot of that is just not there. So these kids are coming out of school if they're not going off to a four-year university with nothing.
Right. We used to have trade schools. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Mhm.
But you know what? I heard what you said, Kelly, but we have to keep in mind, I was reflective of that. Who's living in these homes? You have multiple families living in those homes. They don't just live one family. It's like three generations or
Right.
cousins living in those homes. It's like, oh, we don't work together, we will all be homeless. So you have like sisters and brothers along with their families living in these homes, along with the grandparents living in these homes,
Right.
and they're barely making it. So that's a lot of who's occupying, I think. You know, that's what I've seen around here.
Mhm.
Daniel, did you remember what you were going to say?
Yeah, she had to call me out, man. Well, to add to what you were saying, like who's living in these homes, there's also a lot of land. When you think about Quartz Hill, like West Lancaster, West Palmville, there are people who purchase property and they live somewhere else. You know, so that's also a factor, and it's just a matter of who's taking the census, because we don't really have an accurate assessment of everything.
Right.
And how, like, my question is, how does all this relate to, you know, the educational value of the Antelope Valley, and how to increase, how to make it better?
Right, right. How do we make it better? Any other comments, reflections, thoughts? Comments of what do we do? What's our next steps? What would we like to see happen?
When I think about the education, I know a lot of times people harp on having a facility, some of these larger daycares that are in a facility, but we have a large number of home-based daycares. So would it, because, you know, some of the parents, they can't afford to send their kids, or even CCRC, there's not enough available of the larger ones to place the kids. So we have a large number of home-based ones. Couldn't we provide, I know they have some training, because I know a couple of people who own home-based daycares. There is some training for them, but especially for Antelope Valley, couldn't we suggest more training for them so that the children who are in these facilities, because they're newborn all the way up to 12, 13 years old, could we provide them with some educational assistance so that, since we see this is where they are, we have targeted them, we have found them, let's help them where they are, instead of trying to push them to open a bigger facility, a brick and mortar. That may not happen. It costs a lot of money to do that. But because we have hundreds of home-based, couldn't we provide a curriculum for them to be able to teach the children, instead of the TV teaching them and, you know, they just playing outside, provide more educational assistance for the ones that are at home, since we know that's where the kids are.
Yeah, Kelly, CCRC within the past 6 months received a lot of money. And
Awesome.
we're talking like lots and lots of money that is just aimed at the Antelope Valley. The Antelope Valley is still considered, I mean, even though we may know like people who do the in-home daycare, it is still considered a daycare desert.
Right.
You know, but you're right. So now CCRC is putting together these teams where their number one is outreaching to try to engage more families to become daycare providers. But they're also looking at how do they do these curriculums that are developmentally where they need to be for these children, which I would think would have to then also encompass training on maybe a simple assessment, maybe a simple, you know, so I know that there is money coming down.
Okay, so it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
Okay.
It is. It's coming.
We'll keep pushing them until we start seeing that money. So So yeah, we got to keep doing that push for sure.
Because we know where the kids are. They're there. But everybody can't open these big facilities. I only know one person that has a big facility, but I know at least 15 home-based daycares, and they just can't afford to put one together.
And maybe, you know, as we start seeing we start seeing that there's more families coming together to live in houses because that's all they can afford, then maybe there's a way of like combining, making a business partner, bringing people in together who all have the same thought, but maybe don't have the funding money that they need, but together maybe they'll be able to start a bigger daycare providing center, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
I was gonna say, I was with Alberta. We were a group of one for the housing, and yeah, we did see that. So the majority are multiple family households, and there's a 30% families here that are in the severe rent burden. So majority, 30%, they cannot even afford to pay their rent. So now to actually have to pay for childcare and daycare, it's not in their budget.
It's not enough. It's either pay rent, eat,
Or eat.
or eat, or
Or eat.
pay for gas. They got to pay for gas to get to
Exactly.
the multiple jobs that they have in order to
Right.
pay the rent. In
Right.
order to, yeah, it's a cross section. That's what we're seeing. So now I'm going to go back to your screen, Sylvia, one more time, because I think that after we've gone through these data mats now, it makes a more sense again what we're doing, why we're focusing on this. So I go back.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we've really, we want to thank everybody in the community who has really participated in this. But we've had conversations like we had today. We've been having them for the last 6 months, and we'll continue to have, because these aren't just things that we go over one day and then that's it. Even after the prioritization, we realize that a lot of these systems, they intersect. So we need to, they're going to continue affecting each other, but instead of allowing the effect, we're going to already have the knowledge to be able to say, whoa, this is another area that, we're going to work on. But this is, once we do our data journey, where we just kind of review everything that we've done and then do the voting on what 2 focus areas we want to use. At that point, that's where the work, we take off running. At that point, that's where the work starts. We start with committees and, let's just, for example, if education is one of them, well, we know education system is a huge system. We're not just going to say education is now our priority. We can say, look, as you're saying, Kelly, we know that 0 to 5 is primary age for children, right? We know that that's where a lot of the developmental stuff happens that gets them ready. So if we take education and we say, we're going to get our 0 to 5 population ready for kindergarten, so that then we know that in 3rd grade, they're going to have amazing, 3rd grade reading levels. So then we know that come junior and high school, those kids aren't going to be the ones that are going down the pipeline to the judicial system, right? We know that they're going to be heading off to junior college, to colleges. So those are the kind of conversations we're still going to have. Those are the kind of work that we really have to be like, we have to be creative on how we're going to make the health of the Antelope Valley much better. But it doesn't take us, it takes you. It takes you as the community, you with the lived experience and the knowledge of what we need and where we're going to take this. So I really do. Donna said earlier that she felt hopeful. I do too. I feel that the Antelope Valley has a lot of natural leaders here in the Antelope Valley. And I believe that we're going to take this and we're going to start making some disruptions to some of these systems. And we're going to, really what we want is we want to start having some positive statistics on our side, right?
Right.
We want, I think it was one of the meetings prior that we said we want Palmdale and Lancaster to be the top cities in California. We want to rank. Why not? It's not like it can't be done. It totally can be done. Right. So that's where we're headed. But again, it takes our village to do that, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And what I was pointing out in our room was like you just said, we want to be put on the map as a wonderful place to live for culture,
Right.
for art, for, things to do, stuff for our kids, but we have to shift it There's so much need here for low income families and, you know, families below the poverty level. There is a need. We cannot overlook that. The need is there, but there are so many families who are excelling, who have graduated from college, who have college degrees, who have decent jobs, who have beautiful homes, who have a lot. The numbers just look so unbalanced. So,
Right.
and I just believe we have to bring in the community for the people on one side to say, look, we lived right here. We went to Palmdale High School. We went to Lancaster High School, Pete Knight, whatever. And we're over here. You can do it too. We were born and raised right here in Palmdale, Lancaster. The opportunity is here for everyone. And that's what I want to see more people from the community to say, we were born and raised right here. I've been here 24 years. I wasn't born and raised here, but I've been here long enough to be engrafted into the community to be able to say, it can happen. You can be successful. You can own a home. You can go to college or have a good job, the bus driver, electrician, contractor. There's some decent jobs here, but the people who are living in these other circumstances, we need to be able to show them you don't always have to say, welcome to McDonald's, may I help you? And you don't have to stay on the corner or be a part of all of these programs and be stuck with it. If the mom is single mom with a couple of kids, she's got to get the welfare benefits. She needs to get to this. That's fine, but that's not a lifestyle. That's not a way of living. It's temporary, but let's get you out of that mindset, get you out of that. This is all it is, because this is not all it is. And she needs to
We
know
as
that.
parents and we as adults, it really is our responsibility to be able to say to the youth that you've got to learn to appreciate where you're at. You've got to learn to love your place where you're from. And
Right.
then that way, when they go away and they finish school and they're like professionals, that they're going to want to come back and bring that profession back to
Right.
their
Bring it
Right.
back.
where they
Right.
grew up,
Come back.
right? Back to their community so that they can just continue on giving.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Our
Yeah.
kids need to see that we have doctors, lawyers, teachers, professionals, all kinds of things that look like us in all the different shades we come. They need to see that so that they can have some goal or a hope or something to say, they were raised right here, they live right here, and look what they become. I can do it too.
Right.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Miss Kelly. All right. You better say it. Okay. We are actually, you all, coming to the conclusion of our meeting. I would encourage you to follow us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and we do have our YouTube channel. This is our QR code that takes you to our LinkedIn. And so you can go through there and see what we're doing and what Best Start is actually doing here in the high desert. What are we actually accomplishing with our community residents? With that being said, I want to thank you for taking your time out this morning to come and participate in our stakeholders convening. You matter, your voice matters. We want to hear from you and we want to let you know transparent. This is what we're doing and this is where we're headed and this is what we're hoping to accomplish. So thank you for coming. I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday. It's a short week. It's so weird, but yeah, this is a short week and I want you to have a great one. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone. Yay! We did it.